World War II was not only a conflict between armies and nations, it was a desperate battle for survival and freedom fought by millions of people across the world. From 1939 to 1945, humanity faced one of its greatest tests, where entire nations struggled to survive and individuals fought to protect their freedom, identity, and future. This war decided whether the world would be ruled by fear and oppression or shaped by liberty and self-determination. The war began when Nazi Germany invaded Poland, breaking fragile peace in Europe. Very quickly, countries realized this was not an ordinary war of borders. It was a fight driven by extreme ideologies that aimed to dominate and control others. As German forces advanced across Europe, many nations fell under occupation. For the people living in these countries, survival became a daily struggle. Food shortages, forced labor, loss of freedom, and constant fear became part of everyday life. Freedom of speech, movement, and belief disappeared almost overnight. In occupied territories, people faced difficult choices. Some tried to survive quietly, while others risked their lives by joining resistance movements. These resistance fighters were ordinary men and women who refused to accept oppression. They spread secret messages, sabotaged enemy operations, and helped others escape. Their actions were small compared to large armies, but they represented the human desire for freedom. Even when success seemed impossible, the will to resist never completely died. On the battlefields, soldiers fought not just for their countries, but for survival itself. Conditions were brutal. Soldiers endured extreme weather, lack of supplies, and constant danger. In places like Eastern Europe and North Africa, survival depended on endurance as much as skill. Many soldiers did not know if they would see the next day, yet they continued fighting because defeat often meant loss of freedom, imprisonment, or death for their families and homeland. The war spread far beyond Europe. In Asia and the Pacific, Japan expanded aggressively, occupying large areas and controlling millions of people. For civilians in these regions, survival meant living under harsh rule, forced labor, and violence. Entire communities were displaced. Despite this, many local groups resisted, hoping to reclaim their independence. Their struggles showed that World War II was truly global, affecting people of every culture and background. In 1941, the United States entered the war after the attack on Pearl Harbor. This moment changed the direction of the conflict. America's involvement strengthened the fight for freedom on multiple fronts. Its factories produced massive amounts of supplies, while its soldiers joined battles across Europe and the Pacific. For many occupied nations, this brought renewed hope that liberation was possible. One of the clearest examples of the battle for survival and freedom was the Eastern Front, where Germany invaded the Soviet Union. This front became one of the deadliest in history. Cities were destroyed, civilians were caught between armies, and survival often depended on sheer resilience. The Soviet resistance slowed and eventually pushed back German forces, proving that even the strongest military power could be defeated when faced with determined resistance. Civilians were not spared in this war. Cities were bombed, homes destroyed, and families separated. Air raids turned everyday life into a fight for survival. People slept in shelters, rationed food, and lived with constant uncertainty. Children grew up surrounded by fear, yet many still found ways to help, whether by working, supporting their families, or simply surviving another day. Their endurance became a quiet form of resistance. The fight for freedom reached a turning point in 1944 with the Allied landings in Normandy. This massive operation marked the beginning of the liberation of Western Europe. As Allied forces moved forward, occupied countries slowly regained their freedom. For people who had lived under years of control, the arrival of liberating armies was emotional and life. It symbolized the possibility of a future without fear. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, intense battles continued as Allied forces pushed toward Japan. These battles were difficult and costly, but they were driven by the goal of ending expansion and restoring freedom to occupied regions. Each victory weakened the forces that had imposed control through fear and force. As the war neared its end, the cost of survival became painfully clear. Millions had lost their lives, and entire cities lay in ruins. Yet the defeat of oppressive regimes brought relief and hope. Germany surrendered in 1945, followed by Japan later that year. The war ended, but its impact on humanity was permanent. After World War II, the world understood that freedom could not be taken for granted. The suffering experienced during the war led to new efforts to protect human rights and prevent such conflicts in the future. The United Nations was formed with the aim of promoting peace and cooperation. Many nations that had fought for survival during the war later fought for independence, leading to the end of colonial rule in many regions. World War II remains a powerful reminder that survival and freedom are deeply connected. When freedom is lost, survival becomes uncertain. When people are pushed to the edge, they still fight for dignity, identity, and hope. The war showed the darkest sides of humanity, but also its strongest qualities: courage, sacrifice, and resilience. The battle for survival and freedom during World War II was not won by one nation alone. It was the combined effort of soldiers, civilians, resistance fighters, and ordinary people who refused to accept a world ruled by fear. Their struggle shaped the modern world and left lessons that remain relevant today. Peace, freedom, and human dignity are fragile, and protecting them requires constant effort. World War II stands as a lasting reminder of what is lost when freedom is taken away, and what can be achieved when humanity stands together to defend it.